Hello, friends. I'm sure you know the feeling when you walk into the staff room or down the corridor and you feel that something's not quite right. Maybe it's the way the conversations awkwardly pause or how suddenly people are finding their phones really interesting. You can sense a kind of tension, but when you ask what's going on, everyone shrugs and says, it's nothing really. Yeah, that's what we need to talk about. Schools are living systems. They are complex systems. They run on people and relationships and decisions that build a culture. And while a mission statement looks pristine on paper and the posters in the classrooms, the lived reality is often messier, much messier. Stress leaks out in unexpected ways. Teams maybe fall into patterns of avoidance. Leaders struggle with behaviours that quietly undermine progress. These aren't isolated incidents. They're dynamics within the school, and they shape everything. I've been wrestling with this challenge for years. I was leading schools in Europe and Asia and Africa, and I kept encountering the same invisible forces in action. You could feel when something was wrong, but it was nearly impossible to name it, put your finger on it, and even harder to address it without triggering some kind of defensive reaction or turning it into a battle of opinions. But here's what I've discovered. Unless these dynamics are made visible, they remain these hidden forces that shape the school culture, whether you like it or not. Culture isn't what's written in the handbook. It's the conversations that are happening in the corridors when the leadership isn't listening. As a younger leader, I was often working with very experienced staff, and addressing behavioral problems in the staff often felt like walking through a minefield. I felt that if I pushed too hard, you could almost hear the eyes rolling back, and you know that there would be muttered complaints in the corridors later about inexperience or whatever opinion they had. And now, as a seasoned leader, maybe there's the opposite happening. Maybe the younger staff are there muttering, suggesting that I'm out of touch with the reality of how things really are these days. Either way, these conversations about culture and behavior are really sensitive, and they too often devolve into a subjective battle of will. My values versus their values. My perspective as a leader versus their lived experience in the moment. For years, I searched for a better way. I knew there had to be a better way of visualizing this. What if we could have conversations that were objective rather than personal? What if we could address concerns with curiosity and a positive growth mindset instead of it being conflict? And that's why I built the Dynamics deck. The Dynamics deck is built on a simple but powerful 3x3 framework that makes culture visible. Think of it a bit like using Google Maps for leadership challenges. When you open Google Maps, you can choose two things, the map layer and the zoom level. The layer tells you what you're looking at. Are you looking at the streets or the terrain or a satellite view? The zoom level tells you where you're actually looking at. Are you looking at a house, the city, or the country? And leadership challenges work in the same way. So I've designed this with two axes. First axis is a domain of practice. What type of work is this? The Google map terrain, street view, or satellite view? Is it relational? Is it about relationships, trust, feeling included, communication? Is it operational? Is it about execution and routines and processes and accountability? Or is it strategic? It's about direction, about vision, priorities, and long-term alignment. The second axis is the sphere of influence. Where is this happening? This is the Google Map zoom level. Is it self? It's showing up in my own habits and my own mindset. Is it team? It's showing up in our group dynamic, or is it system? It's showing up across the whole organization. And every challenge can be mapped by asking these two questions. And when you combine them, you get 9 distinct dynamics that shape how schools actually function. So, if we take emotional regulation, for example, that's relational work at the individual level. A leader who manages stress well creates stability and trust. But a leader who leaks anxiety, that stress ripples through the entire team, creating a culture of walking on eggshells. Or consider psychological safety, relational work at the team level. When teams feel safe, they speak honestly, they share bold ideas, and they challenge poor practice. But without it, they fall silent. Problems multiply in the shadows. I've witnessed these dynamics become embedded like bad habits, affecting people for years. Small interactions that break trust, leaders who push for more without pausing to understand the human cost, teams that avoid difficult conversations until small issues become an organizational crisis. So I want to tell you a little bit more about how it works. So this idea of the dynamics deck is it's making these patterns visible through cards and conversations. Each dynamic comes with micro scenarios. The scenarios allow leaders to explore difficult situations, but more at an arm's length, and that means without the defensiveness. Here's my key insight. People rarely set out to be wrong, and they definitely don't like to be told that they're wrong. So when you tackle a behavior problem sort of head on, it becomes a matter of opinion. The leader with the insight versus the person who knows how it really was. These conversations might address the immediate problem, but they rarely create the conditions for a lasting change. There's a big difference between addressing a golf ball and actually hitting it and getting it to go where you want it to go. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we shy away from hard conversations. What I am saying is, let's focus on the impact that we're trying to have. If the impact is a culture shift, a behavior change, a values realignment, then it's worth finding a better approach that can lead to lasting change. So the included scenarios change the conversation. They change the dynamic completely because the situation isn't personal to them. It's just a story. People can easily see the problems in the story. They can recognize solutions in the story, and they can explore different perspectives in the story. Sometimes people who are stuck in a hole, they don't know it, and they don't know what to do except to keep digging. And these scenarios help them to see what the hole might look like from the outside. Each of the 9 dynamics comes with some instruction, some insight, so that you understand and you can unpack what's really happening beneath the surface of these different dynamics. There are 8 scenarios to help identify parallels or similar challenges that you can work with key members of staff. Then you have what are called cognitive reframes. These are your coaching questions that help shift perspective and open up people to new possibilities. And then there are practice builders, concrete strategies that move that insight into actionable practice. The result, I think, is a process that disarms blame and judgment. So instead of saying you are the problem and my opinion is more important than yours, the language becomes, this is a dynamic that we're seeing. How can we work on this? This small shift opens the door to genuine dialogue, reflection, and growth. The Dynamics deck fits within a wider suite of tools designed to make the invisible visible, where the Learning deck creates the foundation for a shared understanding of learning and makes pedagogy visible. The Lead deck makes leadership profiles visible. The Frame deck makes conversations visible. And here the Dynamics deck makes the culture visible. It's the diagnostic tool that underpins everything. So remember, culture isn't built in policy documents or strategic plans. Culture lives in the choices people make under pressure, in the conversations they avoid or the conversations they have in the corridors, in how teams hold each other accountable when no one's watching. In a world where schools face constant demands and change, it isn't optional, it's essential. The health of the school depends not just on what it teaches, but how it behaves. So think of the Dynamics deck as your tool for clarity and growth and cultural transformation, making this culture more visible so that you can name it and address it and work on it. Simple in design, powerful in application. It makes the invisible visible so schools can move from defensiveness to dialogue, from dysfunction to health. I like to think of it as tools for thinking, systems for leading, and school culture made visible. Maybe you're ready to see your school culture a bit more clearly. The Dynamics deck is here. Take a look. learningdeck.com.